So we're talking about opening and then passing from the knees more explicitly. Again, we don't want to isolate this topic into one particular technique, which we then give a name to, and when that doesn't work, we have nothing else to do because all we have is a lexicon of names in our heads, right? What we want to do is stick to the principles of opening and passing. The principle of opening, as we learned in the first segment, is that it's not about how I use the controls with the hands alone. Of course, this is important to a certain degree. I don't want to get choked. So it is important to be able to lift and drop the elbow. It is important to be able to hold the bicep if that's your style of blocking. It is important to be able, if I lead him to the opening and then trap him and hold him, to use enough pressure here and closeness, not strength, but pressure and closeness to isolate him so that the arm doesn't come free. Because this arm is really the weapon here, right? This hand is the isolating hand for me, or for him rather. And to finish the choke, he needs this. So this is really the dangerous hand. So my attention is going to be here more than anywhere in terms of only thinking about protecting the choke. In terms of opening, though, these are just something that I do, right? This is just a prop. It's something for my hands to do so that I have some point of contact. The opening happens only, always, ever because I isolate the hips. That's all. Now, there may be times when the guy decides to open for me because he's got a very high level of comfortability with the open guard. That makes sense. Then he's going to open on purpose, right? Right now, we're not talking about that. We're talking about someone who is very committed to keeping the guard closed for their own security right now. They want to use it to either pull me in by retracting the knees or by pushing me away if I get too close. See, they lift the hips and they drive the heels to the ground and they keep me from sitting up. So you see, it's a game of the hips either way, right? Nathan wants to control my hips by either pulling me in or pushing me away. And I want to control his hips by locking them in place and then moving my body away while the hips stay in place. Then he can't follow me. If I don't lock the hips, right, and I try to do this and stretch him, he just follows me with the hips. Even he can lift the hips up and you can see they'll swing like a hammock. They're relatively free, right, if I don't lock them. So in order to lock them, of course, we talked about holding the arm and locking it down. But the arm doesn't matter, the hip matters. So when I drop this arm, all the pressure has to go on his hip through his own arm via my forearm. Now if I'm only to this side, it's a little dangerous. So I want to balance that out by using the pressure on the opposite hip here. It's not about the grips here, it's just about locking the hips. That means that when I touch his hip with my outside knee and stretch my opposite leg and start to sit back, if I forget that it's about the hips and I think it's about the arms, what am I going to do? I'm going to make this mistake. I'm going to stretch my arm. And now he can hold underneath my elbow. Right? Maybe not with that hand. Yeah. That's all he needs. Just he palms the elbow. And he can still put the foot in the hip here, and he can pass the leg over the head. And now because, he just maybe puts a little pressure, and I have to tap right there. Because the hand here, it supports the elbow in a stronger way, and it makes the arm lock easier. So you stretch the arm, that's what you're going to get, right? Don't stretch the arm. We're saying it's about the hips, but then on your way to opening, you think, oh, it's not about the hips, it's about the chest. Or you just forget that it's about the hips. It's not about how much you push. It's about how much you isolate. I want to drive 2 railroad sticks through his hips right here and keep them on the ground. That way, no matter where I go, he can't follow me. That's why his legs open. They just get stretched to the point of tension where you can no longer keep them shut. If he wanted to keep them shut, he'd have to do this. He'd have to follow me with the hips. But because I'm locking them, he can't. That's why the feet open. It has to be that understanding. You have to have this understanding, otherwise you'll never open. The guy can follow you all day. So I let him reach, I trap, right? We did this already. I hold the sleeve. I touch the hip and I drop the arm. I touch the hip on the outside with my leg, and when I stretch, I put the pressure in the hips and I sit back. And if he still follows me a little bit, when I'm fully stretched, then now I start to walk in a circle. There. Now he's open, right? See, look, I'm not pushing here. The arm doesn't go straight. I'm driving the elbow to the hips. As soon as this is open, don't stay here. As soon as it's open, the hands on the collar, forget the collar. And control the hip. And control the hip. And if you like, you can just sit down on your heels, but make sure your upper body's high. All right, now you're too far away for him to choke, to arm lock, to do anything, and you have the hips. So he's a little panicked. because you've isolated him in this place and you've got his legs available to you to move open one way or the other. Now, of course, passing, right, requires a responsive opponent. During this drill here, Nathan's cooperating with me and he's showing how we would isolate the hips, and he can't keep the feet closed, and that's all legitimate. But once I open, Nathan's not just going to stay still, right? He's going to do something with his legs because he wants to maintain his guard position. He's attached to that. So let's say that he puts the hand on the collar. We go through this process here, right? And we do whatever, and we get him locked down, and I manage to open the hips here. He's going to do something. Do something. Okay, he's going to switch his hips this way. Look, all I want to do is look for a high side and a low side. In order to effectively pass, I want to find a high side and a low side and understand the advantages. Remember, I'm not going to stay like this, right? I want to get my hand out of the collar into the hips and then maybe sit down and start to look and see what's going on here. So, right now, the way Nathan happened to move, his low side is here and his high side is here. Now, his high side is not particularly high, right? We talked about 3 ways of passing: around, through, or under. When you have a side that's low and a side that's mid-range, it's the perfect time to go through. Imagine there's 3 levels of the legs. Low, which is close to the ground; mid-range, which is somewhere around my hip, my rib cage; and then high, which is somewhere around my shoulder. Right now, we've got a low side and a mid side. Low plus mid equals a through pass. I can just hold the knee. I can take this leg out of the way, and now the opposite leg starts to slide over the knee. Right? Very simple. I'm just locking him down. Notice how this hand hasn't left the hips yet. Hasn't left the hips yet. I have to control the hips. The hips are controlled on this side, not because I'm sliding through and trying to crush his thigh. What I'm trying to do is sit on his hip via his leg. If the camera comes back here, you'll see this foot is still hooked. It's still hooked because I don't want him to stretch the leg so he can put the foot down and move the hips. I want to isolate the leg between the knee and the hip. So I'm using every part of my available body to cover that and lock it in place. Put your hands back where they were, please. Let's say we get stuck here. No problem. I want to go under the arm now. This is called an eskrima, when I go under the arm and I hold the shoulder. If I just do that with my arm, I don't have very much security. What I'd like to do is put the elbow close to his rib cage and then also sit down on him to continue to control that hip. I want to crunch into him a little bit. Now this leg is still stuck inside, so I can just walk it over. And in order to finish the pass, if I continue to drive only forward, this hook that I leave on his leg, it sticks me there, and it also makes me a little bit wobbly. What I'd like to do is cross all the energy to this side of his body while keeping the hip isolated. Instead of driving the knee north, I'm going to drive it east. I want to point it this way to the side. And look, now I can take the foot out, and as I sit, all the pressure still stays on his hip. Now at this point, maybe someone who doesn't know much would continue to hold here, but I can't think of a good reason to. He's probably going to start making a frame and pushing, right? Because if he knows anything from the basic position, he's going to be looking to do essentially the equivalent of a headlock escape. He wants to put the pressure here so that my shoulders go behind my hips, right? And he moves the hips away and I fall, and he maybe shrimp in halves, come to his knees, whatever, right? Something's going to happen though where if he can disbalance me like this, I'm going to fall, and then he can sit up and finish the position securely. So I need to keep him from doing that, right? One way is to hold the shoulder with the eskrima grip under the forearm. Let's walk through to where we got again. We saw that somehow after I opened, he made some adjustment, and he gave me a low side and a medium side. Right? Remember, there's low, medium, high. So we got a low side and a medium side. That's when I go through. So I'm going to just keep the leg where it is. I can go through 2 ways. The same side knee, but this is blocking me now, so I'm not going to do that, or the opposite side knee. Now, in order to get this here, I've got to move this out of the way. Is this making sense? See, it's just a puzzle, right? It's not some big deal. If you need to pass this leg over, then you've got to make space for it. So just get it out of the way, and now put it there. That's it, right? Why would I not use this leg here? Because right now, too much of my body's being covered by the knee that came inside. So if I just try to drive here, I'm stuck. See, it's because I'm straight. I need an angle. And if I go this way, what am I going to, all the way over here? No, he's going to take my back, right? It doesn't make sense. You've got to think about what's practical and makes sense, and then just do it. This is the principle of passing, right? So this leg is in the way, and I need to make space for this one. Just open the leg. Take it out of the way. I hold this so he can't move the leg and start to defend. Now I just take this shin and knee, and I cut it across his thigh. Boom. Yes, now look, a little bit of wiggling here will take care of my issue. The knee's still inside, I'm just going to get around. And then go under the arm and hold the shoulder. The foot hooks. I don't want to leave this leg stuck inside. So I step. And now I just start to slide. All the pressure's on the hip. Now I don't want to go too far, because then he'll start to do the escape, or maybe he'll take my back. He can always let go here and pummel under the arm and take my back. That's dangerous for me. So remember, we said the importance of this grip is not just to hold the shoulder, but to lock the space shut so that he can't move that arm through it. Here we go. We have a low side and a medium side. Perfect chance to do a through pass. So I open the leg to make space for this, and I sit, and I hold here. Right? In order for me to stay locked, this elbow has to cover the space. What you can do is even take the elbow inside a little bit. Now it's very hard to pummel. And then I'm going to crunch down. Take the foot out. Take this foot out. And now look, I want to point the knee this way so that my pressure is there with the hips, and I stay on him. Right, that's it. When he does whatever he does with the hand, maybe he's going to make a frame. This is when I do the shrimp and a half. Okay? Just sit the leg through and turn the hip down. Remember to walk with the toe and the heel, the toe and the knee. Keep pressure here and establish your side mount. All right, does that make sense? Think about these things as you pass, okay? Let's go.